Hezbollah's thousands of kilometers of underground tunnels and bases throughout the south of Lebanon, central Lebanon, and northern Lebanon are untouched. And the Israeli regime has not been able to do anything about it. And that's why they've been defeated on the border during the battles over the last week. And their casualties are much. Excuse me.
To interrupt and say that with
No, look, I have to be able to respond.
Commanders killed. How can Hezbollah be intact?
Well, you don't allow me to speak. So if I can't speak, then obviously you're not going to get your answers.
The country that actually conquered Lebanon is not Israel. It's Iran. Iran, which finances and arms Hezbollah to serve Iran's interests at Lebanon's expense. Hezbollah has turned Lebanon into a stockpile of ammunition and weapons and a forward Iranian military base. We've degraded Hezbollah's capabilities. We took out thousands of terrorists, including Nasrallah himself, and Nasrallah's replacement, and the replacement of his replacement. Today, Hezbollah is weaker than it's been for many, many years.
Lebanon's health ministry says at least 22 people have been killed, more than 100 wounded in Israeli attacks on Beirut late on Thursday. The airstrikes hit 2 districts in the centre of the capital. This is the deadliest bombardment in the area since Israel escalated its campaign against Hezbollah last month. Meanwhile, in the south of the country, the UN says its peacekeepers have been deliberately targeted by Israeli tanks.
Yom Kippur has started over in Israel, and several people in Lebanon have been killed and more than 100 injured after Israeli airstrikes hit the capital city of Beirut earlier.
Hezbollah's thousands of kilometers of underground tunnels and bases throughout the south of Lebanon, central Lebanon, and northern Lebanon are untouched. And the Israeli regime has not been able to do anything about it. And that's why they've been defeated on the border during the battles over the last week. And their casualties are much. Excuse me.
To interrupt and say that with
no, look, I have to be able to respond.
Commanders killed. How can Hezbollah be intact?
Well, you don't allow me to speak. So if I can't speak, then obviously you're not going to get your answers.
There are unconfirmed reports that not only has Hassan Nasrallah been killed, as well as some 10, 12, some say 15 or 20 top commanders been killed, but now there are unconfirmed reports that Hashim Saifuddin, who's been talked of as Nasrallah's successor, has been killed. And this morning there are reports that General Ismail Ghani, the chief of the Iranian Quds force, who was in Beirut, perhaps even with Saifuddin at the time, is missing. So surely you have to accept that Hezbollah has been fairly badly battered and put into a crisis.
Well, again, until we see a confirmation, I can't comment on any of these issues. But
so you are accepting that Ghani is missing?
No, I'm responding. Just one moment. But I said earlier to you that Hezbollah's weakest link was always Beirut because of the nature of Beirut. So those assassinations and those murders, which alongside it, hundreds of civilians were murdered in the West and the Western media, and unfortunately, some other people have tried to downplay the civilian slaughter. That aside, Hezbollah on the battlefield is holding and is.
But are you seriously saying that Hassan Nasrallah was sitting as a sitting duck target in the weakest link of Hezbollah? That is irresponsible of Hezbollah, isn't it, to leave their Secretary General a sitting duck in their weakest link? And then
I think you know what I was saying. I was saying that Beirut is always going to be the weakest link because, as I said at the very beginning, that Western intelligence agencies, American AWACS and drones overhead, all of them, they've been gathering intelligence for decades. Western NGOs, Western journalists, they've infiltrated Lebanon for decades before Hezbollah was ever created. During the period when the PLO was in Lebanon and India used to support the Palestinian cause and used to be the pride of the global South, what India was doing for the Palestinian people. Back then, during Yasser Arafat and the PLO, Beirut was heavily infiltrated by Western intelligence agencies. But as I said, Hezbollah's capabilities across the country, and in particular in the south, where the battles are raging, they are 100% intact, and that is why the Israeli regime has failed to make any progress on the
Are
ground and has
are you
had
seriously
many
telling me,
casualties.
Professor Marandi, that after its Secretary General was killed, after 12, maybe 15 of its top commanders are killed, after Safieddine, who's meant to be the successor to Hassan Nasrallah, is missing, after Ghani, who's the head of the Iranian Quds force, is missing in Beirut, you're seriously saying after all of that, Hezbollah's capacity and capability and strength is not damaged?
Well, some of what you say is just speculation. The commanders and Ismail Haniyeh or Mr. Safieddine. And again, I think you rely too much on the Western narrative, and that is basically how the West tries to
But Iran is
run
silent about all
the
these
show.
developments. There's no
No,
information
we will
coming out
see,
of Tehran about Ghani's whereabouts.
but time will tell. Time will tell. This will go online. Time will tell if
Okay, my
Hezbollah
last question.
is if
There's a
Hezbollah is weak.
This is a message to the people of Lebanon. Do you remember when your country was called the Pearl of the Middle East? I do. So what happened to Lebanon? A gang of tyrants and terrorists destroyed it. That's what happened. Lebanon was once known for its tolerance, for its beauty. Today, it's a place of chaos, a place of war. But the country that actually conquered Lebanon is not Israel. It's Iran. Iran, which finances and arms Hezbollah to serve Iran's interests at Lebanon's expense. Hezbollah has turned Lebanon into a stockpile of ammunition and weapons and a forward Iranian military base. We've degraded Hezbollah's capabilities. We took out thousands of terrorists, including Nasrallah himself, and Nasrallah's replacement, and the replacement of his replacement. Today, Hezbollah is weaker than it's been for many, many years. Now you, the Lebanese people, you stand at a significant crossroads. It is your choice. You can now take back your country. You can return it to a path of peace and prosperity. If you don't, Hezbollah will continue to try to fight Israel from densely populated areas at your expense.